This is episode 54 of Fans Talk TNA. My name is Nick, and I'm joined tonight by Garvin. Say hi, Garvin.
Why can we not get a Micah match on TV?
I don't know. It's bizarre. Well, aside from ranting about that, we're also here to recap and review the November 11th episode of Impact Wrestling. Before we get started on that, just want to let you know, if you enjoy these conversations and you want to make your own contribution to them, how about joining the Squared Circle of Trust? You can help us cover the costs of recording, hosting, and distributing our episodes, and all it takes is $1 a month. With that dollar, or more as you so choose, you can find the entire archive for this series, as well as others from the Fans Talk family, and you get other perks. For us, the knowledge that we have feedback and support helps us to keep doing what we're doing on a whole number of levels. You can head on over to fanstalktna.com right now and find out more. This week on Impact, we had a few different people advancing to the round of 16, and that first started off with Gail Kim. She beat Madison Rayne for 3 points and advanced. I think this is a good way to open things up. We got a goofy little intro with Madison Rayne's ninja training, and, you know, we had a pretty decent match going afterward. Yeah, I thought the bump that Gail Kim took when she missed that dive into the corner, I thought that was pretty sick. So, yeah, again, good way to open things up.
Yeah, I agree, Nick. I mean, overall, it was a good match. I think pushing Gail Kim to the 16, I think that was the best move. As far as that like little ninja segment beforehand, I really wasn't into it. I thought it just felt like really uninspired and counter what I thought we were supposed to think of Madison Rayne. Like she had been going like on a much more serious tone as of late, and this was just like it just didn't add anything, I felt.
Yeah, it really didn't. All right, next match up, after a interview with Matt Hardy where he talked up basically being the best there ever was and how he's going to sweep everybody, we had Eli Drake versus Jesse Goddard, and Eli Drake, I guess, pulled the greater shenanigan in a whole series of shenanigans, and he got 3 points over Jesse Goddard. So I really enjoyed the way they kept trying to one-up each other here. It reminded me a lot of when Bobby Roode and Austin Aries would fight when they were both heel, just each trying to pull the dirtiest trick imaginable, and you know how they went blow for blow with each different strategy, pulling the hair, the false handshake gambit, all of that. I thought that was great.
Yeah, Nick, it's odd because we really haven't been able to get a good look at Eli Drake yet, as far as like what kind of wrestler he is, what his in-ring psychology is like. You know, just because he's always been, you know, just the other guy when he was with Drew and Micah. And you know, we've seen like little glimpses of it. Obviously he's great on the mic, but I thought this match was good in that it showed, you know, what he can really do in the ring. I think my only disappointment with this was just the fact, you know, of how Jesse was portrayed, especially like after the initial back and forth. You know, that back and forth was good stuff, like you said. But then after that, like Eli went after the legs, which was great as far as ring psychology goes. But Jesse just he did nothing. It was just really strange considering how they've been building him up as of late. You know, Eli was made to look, you know, basically the same size, generally the same muscle tone, and yeah, just the overall better wrestler.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you that it was kind of disappointing that Jesse didn't get an opportunity to showcase as much. But like you said, we haven't really seen a whole lot from Eli Drake, whereas Jesse's had a chance to develop a character, develop a professional ego. Eli Drake is great on the mic, like you said. I love his promo style. It strikes me as something of a throwback, like from the 80s. Just the way he'll enunciate Eli Drake and close out every promo with it. That's not an insult, that's just a fact of life. The one little bit about his character that doesn't seem to jive with me is the Prince of Eternia gimmick, the chess piece and everything. But, you know, I think he kind of pulls that off. And the more we get to see of him, how he wrestles matches, how he outwits his opponents, is wilier than his opponents, I'm willing to accept that Jesse didn't look that great in this match, and I figure he'll make up for that in his upcoming match with Micah.
If we see it on TV.
Yeah, that's true. All right, well, two guys that we won't be seeing any more of in the next couple of weeks, I imagine, will be Matt Hardy and Eddie Edwards, because they're done with group play. Matt Hardy beat Eddie Edwards for 3 points, the sweeping group tag team specialist with 9 points. He was already locked in to advance. This was just basically icing on the cake for him. I think it was a pretty good match. It wasn't really anything outstanding. There wasn't really any hallmark moment, I guess you would say. But even so, all throughout the match, it was quality wrestling, I think.
Yeah, I really wasn't blown away by this match. I think I'm just tired of both of them, to be honest. But I thought what was odd was just how Hardy was competing on the outside. It's weird, like when you start seeing a guy like Hardy who is using the rails or using the edge of the ring or using the steel steps, you would think that they would push like how Hardy is more of like that Daredevil extreme style of wrestler, and why that's acceptable for him to basically try to break Eddie's hand on the steel steps. To me, it just came off because they never really talked about it in commentary. It came off almost like a heel. It was either heel or extreme, but like they just didn't like talk about it. But it just felt odd to me.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I didn't take special note of that, but now that you mention it, I imagine I'd attribute it to the circumstances that he's in and why this whole tournament is a thing in the first place. He was robbed of the title by EC3's court injunction. The reason the injunction was filed in the first place, basically his brother and the accusation of collusion. He's driven to prove that he should be the champion, that he ought to still be the champion, and part of that proving process is him sweeping the field, but also I think that can be reflected in his style of matches going through the tournament. Not being quite so babyface, being willing to go more to that extreme.
Yeah, it would just be nice if they talked about that in commentary.
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure. Speaking of extreme, after that we had the Group X Division match, DJZ versus Mandrews, and we had a running theme throughout some of these Group X Division matches of Mandrews just taking too much time between moves. And once again, that cost him. DJZ beat him for 3 points, and Mandrews is mathematically eliminated. Overall, I think this is pretty good on both guys' parts. Again, the whole criticism about Mandrews just not having that killer instinct, it's bearing out, and it does make me question whether or not that's ever going to change. If Mandrews is going to stick with this punk rocker, crowd-pleasing skater gimmick, or, if he will develop a little bit more of an edge. Until then, I think DJZ going on, getting 6 points, I think that's a good move, and I figure he will be advancing to the round of 16 when all is said and done.
Yeah, and I've told you, as far as like my opinion of Mandrews, I think overall his style is needed. I like his matches, but yeah, the lack of speed when he needs to hit the high risk move, or just the fact that like this gimmick is almost getting in the way of him doing things. I think it's just bad. I don't know if it's just him like getting used to it or what, but. Yeah, I do have that same issue with Mandrews still. But by far, to me, this was the match of the night. I thought it was great for both guys. DJZ looked pretty awesome. Overall, he looks like he's got that energy about him that he wants to win this. And we need to see more wrestlers be like that, as far as wanting to win and showing that in the ring and in their facial expressions and in how they're going about the match. But yeah, as far as DJZ potentially advancing along with Manic, I think that's a great move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, match of the night for sure. What definitely wasn't the match of the night, wasn't even really a match that we saw, was Micah and Crimson. Again, we got a little promo beforehand from Crimson about, the business is in Micah's blood. Son of the Great Haku, gonna go on to do great things, and he's a guy that Crimson would love to have on his team. But they weren't teammates, they were opponents, and Micah actually beat Crimson, thus, I believe, mathematically eliminating him from competition.
Crimson has 0 points.
Mm-hmm. So, that puts Group Future 4 in an interesting place, I think. I believe that puts both him and Eli Drake a point ahead of Jesse Goddard's. I would imagine Micah is going to be overlooked when it comes to who's advancing to the round of 16. I figure it's going to be Jesse and Eli.
Well, the fact that they have basically refused to show his matches on TV, the fact that they've, this match in particular, they showed 2 highlights, and one, I don't even think, I can't even remember what it was, but it wasn't hitting a move or anything. It was them tying up or something. It was something trivial almost. And then the end of the match was the second clip. And we're talking 5 seconds in the first one and 5 seconds in the second clip. And yeah, so I don't know if it's just Micah is just not good, at least when at this point in his career with TNA, or what. It's just so odd. But because they haven't showcased him at all, I can't imagine that he would just skate through to the round of 16.
Yeah, you would think that there would be a full-length match shown if he was going to move on. Then again, I think there is a lot to be said about having both Eli Drake and Micah move on just to keep up that animosity between the two. But I guess we'll see for sure when Micah has his match with Jesse Goddard's in the near future. So we went on from that and we moved into the main event for the evening. Ethan Carter III versus Mr. Anderson. Anderson was already mathematically eliminated from competition, but he had the opportunity to play spoiler for against EC3. Unfortunately for him, he failed in that mission. There were shenanigans, as has been the usual, and EC3 walked away with 3 more points. So, that happened. It was, again, a pretty standard match that we've come to expect from EC3. Shenanigans with the ref, Tyrus getting involved, a little bit of a comeback from the babyface, but ultimately EC3 is still technically undefeated in singles competition, unpinned, unsubmitted, all that, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, I don't want to suggest that I don't like EC3, because it's not that. But overall, it happened. The match was, to me, the match was pretty meh at best. I think it's not that I don't like EC3 or what EC3 does in the ring. I think he's fantastic on the mic. I like him as champion. But I'm tired of the competition that they put him up against. And, we saw that feud with Anderson, and it wasn't as good as it could have been. And it's like he's just going up against these veterans that we're realistically tired of seeing, whether it's Angle, Anderson, Sting. I think Bully Ray was the only one that I was excited about as far as a veteran going up against EC3, just because, it's Bully Ray. But yeah, I would really like TNA, when this is all over, say February or March or whenever this tournament's going to end. I really hope that they stop trying to focus so much on the veterans and push a guy like Eli Drake or Jesse Goddard's or Robbie E. and have them feud with EC3, because I think we would get a much more compelling story with those kind of guys, just because we haven't seen them at that level. And I think just overall we just need new competition for EC3. Otherwise, to me, it's just not a great match.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you as far as using the veterans to legitimize and enhance EC3. You've already used basically the biggest names you can have. Both the Hardys have failed to get one over on EC3. Angle's failed, Bully Ray's failed, Sting's failed. It's time to start treating him like the icon, sort of like the icon he's claiming to be, and have guys punch above their weight, maybe, to try and get at him. I figure it's going to be Drew Galloway, just because, we haven't really seen anything resolved between them, and he's already been screwed out of a couple title opportunities now. But, yeah, there's definitely a lot to be said for what you're advocating there. Okay, so if the World Title Series ended today, here's your round of 16. From Group Champions, we've got EC3. He's qualified for the group already. And Austin Aries is the next in line with 4 points. We're going to see how that goes next week when Aries faces off against Lashley. In Group Future 4, Eli, Drake, and Micah are tied with 4 points, and Jesse Goddard is trailing with 3. From the Knockouts group, Gail Kim is qualified with 6 points, and we're going to find out who else advances between Awesome Kong and Brooke next week. In Group TNA Originals, same deal happens with 2 matches next week. We're going to find out who advances because, as of right now, everybody's tied with 3 points. In Group Tag Team Specialists, obviously Matt Hardy's qualified. Robbie E is still ahead with 3 points, and Davey Richards is sitting on 1. So he's going to have to beat Robbie E if he wants to advance.
Not going to happen.
Yeah, I highly doubt that. In Group UK, Drew Galloway's ahead with 6 points. Bram and Rockstar Spud are currently tied with 3. Grado is... It's not showing him as mathematically eliminated, but highly doubtful that he'll be the one advancing. From Group Wildcard, Mahabali Share is ahead with 6 points. Aiden O'Shea and Kenny King are tied with 3. Again, I've been saying this week in and week out. Most likely going to be O'Shea that advances. And finally, in Group X Division, DJZ and Manic are tied with 6 points. Tigre Uno has 3. I think that's pretty much how it's going to be right there. DJZ and Manic advancing. So, yeah, any thoughts about that little makeup? Do you have any predictions about who's going to be moving forward?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I'm right in line with you. I think as far as TNA Originals go, it's going to be EY and Rude. But like you said last week, Rude doesn't necessarily need to move up. He's got the King of the Mountain Championship, so if he focuses on that, especially if he gets eliminated here, that'll give us something else to focus on as we get closer to the final 16. It's just that timelines are weird, so I can't remember how long he's had that title compared to when they were taping all of this. So is it even possible to have a Rude match as champion, during the next few months? So it's all. I mean, you almost have to have him continue in this story just because of those timelines.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, I don't know. I had been thinking tonight that it would be EY and Abyss, but yeah, mentioning the timeline deal, that puts a whole new spin on things. We are going to get clarification on that next week. Like we've been saying, Abyss versus Rude and EY versus Storm are going to wrap up group play in Group TNA Originals next week. Also, we're going to see Brooke versus Awesome Kong, and we're also going to be seeing Austin Aries versus Lashley in end group play in Group Champions. Closing out things, we've got a little bit of news. We have the World Title Series semifinals. The announcement has been made by Dixie Carter and TNA that they will be taking place in India during their tour in December. So that should be pretty interesting. It makes sense that those tapings would air maybe in January or sometime in there. But yeah, I think it's gonna breathe some new life into the product. There's a fresh new crowd. The Indian crowds always get excited for wrestling in general. I mean, India loves wrestling. Professional, amateur, you name any variety of it, they're into it. If I recall correctly, Ring of King, those audiences were always going nuts for just about anything you put in front of them. So, yeah, and with the quality of action we're going to be seeing here, I think we're going to see a genuinely exciting product.
No, I'm with you. I'm looking forward to how this looks on TV. My issue, though, is if they're doing these tapings in early to mid-December, and we're not going to see them until January or February, it's going to be it's going to be really difficult to avoid spoilers.
Yeah, that is a really good point. I don't know. I guess just don't go on the internet.
Don't go on the internet for the next 3 months, guys.
Yeah. All right, well, I guess that about does it for this week in Impact and all the news and happenings that came out of it. Garvin, do you have any final thoughts?
I have two. One, during one of the middle segments, the filler segments backstage with Pope and Josh Matthews, they were going through a few different topics, but one of the topics was who has been the most disappointing in this series? And I'm curious what your answer was.
I think James Storm was a very valid answer. Obviously, there are extenuating circumstances for why he's blowing it right now, but yeah, you would think that he would get a little bit more of, not a push, but he'd have a little more legitimacy going into this. Like, he's a former World Heavyweight Champion, multi-time tag team champion. He's a TNA original. I don't know, I guess maybe you would think that they would have crafted the matches a little bit better to make it look like there actually was some doubt as to who would be advancing, instead of him being the surefire bet of failure in a group of otherwise up-in-the-air choices.
Yeah, Storm was Pope's answer. I will agree with that for the most part, but for me, I think the most disappointing has just been the entire Knockouts group. This was a perfect opportunity to showcase how quality the Knockouts are when you compare them to other companies' women's divisions. And unfortunately for just what TNA has done with this, or at least what these matches have produced, outside of the always good Gale versus Awesome Kong match, everything else has been really lame almost. I think I was hoping that they would, legitimize Gale and Awesome Kong, or whoever was going to advance, that they are, true competitors that can challenge for the top title. And I just don't think these matches have done them that favor.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And I think that's down to the talent that they chose or maybe even had available. When I think of the best women's wrestlers, Brooke and Madison Rayne aren't exactly up there. Even just confined to the Knockouts, I think Gail Kim and Awesome Kong, they're up there. But then I think Taryn Terrell and Jade. I really don't know why they were excluded. I'm pretty sure all members of the original Dollhouse were around back in July. So, I don't know. I'm not sure why they weren't included and instead Brooke and Madison were.
And then also, last week, you were talking about what they could do with Anderson, because theoretically Anderson's out of the tournament. Then you have the Wolves that are basically out of the tournament. So who could Anderson partner up with to, start some kind of tag team feud with the Wolves? And I think you threw out Melendez as a possible candidate. And while we have seen them together on TV before, and that would make sense, I think one guy on here that would really do well with an Anderson by his side, just because they both have a similar Army connection or military connection, and that would be Crimson and Anderson going for the tag titles, because they were both pretty much eliminated, no wins for either of them. They both have a lot to prove. You've got that young guy that needs to prove that he belongs in TNA. You've got Anderson, who needs to prove that he still has it, and I think that would be a good tag team.
Yeah, for sure. From everything I've heard and seen, since Crimson left TNA and started focusing exclusively on OVW, he's really stepped up his game a lot in terms of what he brings to the table. I think he's a lot more comfortable on the mic now. I think his in-ring game has been stepped up. So, yeah, I would absolutely go for Anderson and Crimson as a tag team. Another possible team, maybe, depending on how Group UK plays out, Mandrews and Rockstar Spud. Mandrews has been eliminated. Rockstar Spud, since his final match is against Drew Galloway, I am betting that he's going to lose. And I'm betting on Bram beating Grado. So, or that also fields the possible team of Rockstar Spud and Grado.
Or Mandrews and Grado. Yeah.
That too, yeah. So yeah, it looks like we're going to have a few different options moving forward with that. I did look up the tour in India, and it does look like they will be all taped. I got my hopes up when it said live event, but that's apparently the one night only from Mumbai.
Yeah.
That will be airing live, so for what that's worth. Okay, so those of you out there in Radio Land, please let us know how we're doing with the series. Do you like the changes that have been implemented? Do you have anything that you'd like to see? Do you want to see more of Garvin around? The answer is yes. Let us know on the Facebook group, on Twitter, in the G Plus community, You can leave a comment on iTunes or whatever you download your podcasts. Maybe rate us and subscribe as well. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. And this podcast family couldn't be happening without the support of our Patreon subscribers, our Squared Circle of Trust, if you will. If you'd like to get in on that action and help us keep things running and also get a bunch of fun perks in the process, you can head on over to fanstalktna.com, click on that big green button, and find out how you can help with just $1 a month. So for Garvin, this is Nick. We'll be back next week, and I hope you will be as well. Take care, y'all. Fans Talk TNA is part of the Fans Talk podcast family and can be found at fanstalktna.com. The Fans Talk podcast family is a subsidiary of Tiger Creative LLC.